Hey everybody, this is Blair from Rhyme Digital. I'm going to be talking today about Contao and Composer. So basically, there's in Contao 3 point, I forget what it is, but 3 point something. Essentially, there was a realization that the existing extension repository for Contao just wasn't cutting it. And it was doing its job. But there's a lot of better tools out there to handle things. The old extension repository, as you can see here, it had a search. It was relatively slow. It had some sorting and filtering options. You can download it directly from the back end here in your Contao installation. You could also go onto the Contao site and search there and get kind of the same results and manually install things as well. The problem with that is that say you were downloading EFG. It was a fairly popular form generator plugin, although I won't get into the specifics of why we don't use it anymore. But it relied on a library called PHP Excel, for example, that was in order to export the data that it saved. So every time you downloaded EFG to your Contao installation, you had to also pull in a PHP Excel library. That might be used by several other different extensions which are all doing the same thing. So you got all these different copies and potential different versions of a PHP Excel export library on your system, and sometimes they could conflict with one another, and you'd run into all sorts of problems. So what does that mean for you, the person who's using Contao to manage your site every day? Well, probably not that much, other than you might just be calling your developer saying, hey, why doesn't this work? Why? And your developer kind of goes and scratches his head and said, how many different things did you install? And looking at why they conflicted with one another. And this happens not just in Contao's world, but in other places online. Same types of things could happen. WordPress, any other CMS, where you're pulling in extensions that are dependent on some other library that could potentially conflict with one that's already installed, and mass chaos breaks out. So along comes Composer. And Composer's been around for a while now. It's really within the last 3 or 4 years has really started to gain popularity as what's called a package manager. So PHP had Pair, which was kind of a package management system, but other frameworks and languages, Java, it was really easy to manage dependencies and different libraries, and you would write code and it would be dependent on other libraries, and you could essentially just pull in single copies of those and reuse them multiple times. So Composer is a dependency manager for PHP. It's basically designed to help you manage the other libraries and code that your code is dependent on. So it also helps you manage things like conflicts and being able to say, hey, this code is only going to work with this version of this particular software or this other library. So if you try and pull anything in, it's not going to be able to work, plain and simple. So it prevents those types of errors from happening. And so Composer basically is just the software that manages the dependencies. Composer also has a package repository called Packagist, which has basically has a ton of different packages that you can browse, and these are all open sourced things that exist either on GitHub or other places. Rhyme has its own GitHub repositories where we keep a lot of our open source code for Contao. And what we do is we have a Composer file in those that basically says, hey, this code that we've created is dependent upon these packages. Here's the versions that they are compatible with. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to work with this particular piece of software. And so Packagist, just kind of is a place online that holds all of these repositories and manages and monitors the code and how things are kind of built out. And you can see Packagist over time, since 2012, the amount of packages that are in the Packages repository. It's as of today is 66,000. Quite a bit many more packages than are in the Contao extension repository, which is around 1,800. Contao's had about 2.5 million downloads of different extensions, which is a pretty big number, but just comparatively, the packages installed monthly via Packagist on here are about 85 million. So lots. So again, what does this mean for you? Basically starting in Contao 3 point whatever, you had this option when you were setting up your Contao installation to install this new Composer-based extension repository as opposed to the old default one that you can see here. So when you do that, you basically install the, it's a little bit of a warning that it's a beta version. It's not a complete replacement for the Contao regular extension repository, but it's a start, and I do believe that the next full version of the extension repository for Contao will be based, or at least using Composer in some way, shape, or form. So when you install that, you have this nifty little package management dashboard in the back of your Contao installation, and so as a developer, we can, basically specify in our code, like I mentioned before, like, hey, when you download this software, you're also going to need to pull in all these other versions of the software. And if you have something that's in your extension and that you've downloaded already to your Contao installation that conflicts with something there, basically you're not going to be able to install it until you resolve those conflicts. So it prevents like mass catastrophes from happening, which when you're dealing with 66,000 package libraries and repositories that are out there, that can happen. And so this is basically setting PHP and Contao on a path to better dependency management and better just installation and avoiding conflicts of different packages. So developers have a lot more control, they have a lot more options as far as what they can pick from, and that in turn means to you, the client, that you've got a lot better maintained software to choose from. The possibility of installing something that shouldn't be in there and having your whole Contao installation blow up is much, much less. And it's just a great organizational tool for us on the back end. And eventually, as Packagist grows, as the number of libraries grow, and as Contao grows, it opens up the world of from Contao's extensions, which is 1,793, to the entire universe of packages, PHP packages that are as you can see, were probably around 66,000. Huge, huge, huge difference, and a lot more options. And that's the roadmap that Contao's chosen, which I think is a great one. And we can talk a little bit more about that and how Composer works with Contao 4, which is built as a Symfony bundle in another screencast. So hope this was informative at least, and essentially you should just know that it's a good thing. Composer, package management in Contao, and whatever other PHP application you might have, very, very good thing, and it helps keep your code and your site better organized and managed. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll stay tuned for our next screencast.